We laugh. We cry. We learn. But really, what doesn't kill you makes you better at managing clients and everyone. I'm Morgan Friedman, and this is Client Horror Stories.
Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Client Horror Stories. I'm very excited to have Greg Digneo. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yeah, you got it. Digneo, yep.
I get a gold star.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
I'm going to retire now. And I'm excited to have Greg here. We had a great get to know you call recently, and I'm so excited to hear this story. I have my coffee with whiskey in hand. I'm all yours, Greg.
So the story,
where to start?
Yeah, where to start? Okay, so this story begins in like 2003, I want to say. So I was going into senior year of college or something like that, and my friend and I we get the idea to start a solar panel company. We're going to install solar panels on other people's roofs. So we get our start. We didn't really know what we were doing, but one of our professors was like, "Hey, I want solar panels," and the two of us were like, we were looking to get something started. So we were like, "Hey, we'll put your solar panels on the roof." We had no idea what we were doing, but he was willing to pay us. So that's how we got started.
I love the spirit of jumping in.
Yeah, we kind of just raised our hand and we're like, "Yeah, we'll do it for you, sure." At the time, we got paid more money than we'd ever seen in our kind of lives because it was the way the whole thing was structured. There was like a lot of rebates and state incentives to do it. And so like we would just tack on money on top of that. And we made like $10,000 or something like that. And again, for 21, 22-year-old kids, that was more money than
amazing.
Yeah, that was more than we'd ever seen. And so we were like, we're going to do a solar panel installation, which was fantastic. So then we got another job. Another professor wanted the solar panels. And then somehow we got to our third client, our third customer, and I don't remember how we acquired him or how he found us or how we found him. My buddy Matt, who was my co-founder at the time, said, "Hey Greg, I got a customer near here. Let's go check it out." And so, or I got a potential customer near here. It wasn't even a customer at the time, but so we go there and we're checking it out, and the roof is perfect. The house is perfect. It's a beautiful house. And we're kind of going through and we're just talking to the guy, and he starts to say some things that were a little bit weird to us, but we were, again, 21, 22 years old, and we didn't know any better.
Give us some examples.
Yeah, sure. So he would say something like, so he had a floor in the garage that had a special paint on it that, he told us that's the floor that NASCAR garages use. I have no idea if that's true or not. But it was a very special paint, and it was like scuff-proof paint, so the tires wouldn't scuff the floor of the garage. Okay. Whether NASCAR people have it, like as we'll see more and more, you'll understand why I'm not sure that's the truth. Okay. However, I could tell you that it was a specialized paint, and it was probably more expensive than your average like Behr or whatever kind of paint you want to use. So, but he was saying something along the lines of like, "Hey, see this floor? I got it for free because I sued the company because they weren't doing a good enough job," or something along those lines. And the two of us, we kind of just like chuckled at it and laughed, and we were like, "All right, that's weird but funny, whatever, okay."
Dude,
and so
in retrospect,
that's when we should have walked away, 100%.
For listeners, I just want to point out something that's come up before on previous episodes. Every episode, I try to get at least one new lesson in, and we already have one. Yeah. On previous episodes, I'm like, it's a red flag or maybe a yellow flag if a client is complaining about previous people who did the same job.
Yep.
Because if you hired one marketing firm, they're terrible, then another terrible, then another terrible. It's not that every marketing firm in the universe sucks. It's that you are terrible or unrealistic expectations.
Correct.
But what's new here is that he didn't complain when he's like, "Yeah, I sued them." That's like a whole other level of intensity.
Yep. So he sued the company and got the floor done for free. And again, we didn't know any better. We were young
Oh
and
my
dumb.
goodness.
And again, we were making $10, $15, $20,000 a job. Like, we were not going to turn down that
Yeah.
money. So we kind of just shrug it off. We laugh, we chuckle, we shrug it off. But again, for as long as I live, I'll never forget the fact that he talked about suing another service provider the first day we met him. And so that was like the very first red flag that we had. There were a couple others. I don't remember the exact timeline because, again, this was 22 years ago. But another thing that happened is he had photographs. He talked about being at the time, DSLR cameras were all the rage and super expensive because
I remember DSLR.
Yeah, this is pre-iPhone. So we had a DSLR camera with like a telephoto lens and things like that. And we were walking around the house one time, and he was showing us the pictures that he was taking. And one of the pictures that he said like he won an award for, it was a picture that he quote unquote claimed to have taken in Norway. And I looked at the picture, and it's like, I can't explain it, but I knew I saw the picture before. It's a famous painting of like this bay in Norway that everybody had seen. If you Google like famous painting or famous portrait of Norway or something like that, you'll know what I'm talking about and you'll see it. And I had seen this before, even like, I guess maybe he didn't know people like had Google image wasn't a thing. I don't know. Or the internet wasn't a thing it wasn't a big thing at the time, but like the internet was still a thing then. But again, I kind of dismissed it, and I was like, that's weird. I think I've seen this painting before. I'm not an art expert or anything like that, but I'm like, this looks, or sorry, not this painting, this picture. Like, I think I've seen this picture before. And so we were like working that day or whatever we were doing to install that day. And then one of us goes through the internet and we look up the guy's name. And I'm not going to tell you the guy's name, but we go through, we look up the guy's name. And in this, in one of the things that we found, like, I don't remember if it was a forum or a newspaper clipping or something, but there's this picture on the internet. And the guy is claiming, hey, I won an award for this picture. It's a famous picture, blah, blah, blah. And then right under it, it's a thing. There's a message, something along the lines of, you will hear from our attorney as this picture is a proprietary picture or portrait or something like along those lines, or this picture is copyrighted or whatever the terminology was. So that was like another red flag. Again, I don't remember exactly when that red flag was. And then like those were like two things that I just vividly remember. And throughout the thing.
Just want to make the point that it's incredible how people who lie and make up shit, they lie and make up shit on the things that are so easy to prove them false.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't even try, like take an obscure
for sure
photo, not a famous one.
Yeah, it's like honestly, like for your audience, Google famous painting of Norway, and it's going to be one of the 2 or 3 that comes up. So, that was one of the things that like just kind of just super, super weird. And again, we kind of shrugged it off, but I think at that time we were in the middle of the job and we'd already received money. So I don't even know what we could have done regardless of that, maybe other than give them the money back and, be stuck with all the inventory of solar panels. So we finished the job, and we finished the job up in 2003. And the next 17 years of our lives, we would hear from this man. So normally what happens is with the solar panel installation, you do finish the job. You finish the job with the client, and like, maybe I come out and you're like, hey, Greg, like, could you just check on this? Or but most of the time I never hear from the person again. We would hear from this man from like 2004 to 2008. We were hearing from this man 4 and 5 times a week, a month. I'm sorry.
About once a week.
Just about once a week. Yeah, for about 4 years. And then it tapered off, and we would hear from him about like once every 2-3 months for the next like 10 years or so. And let me go back really quick. The other thing that was really weird about this man was that we never saw him in a job. And we were working there on like a Wednesday afternoon at 3:00 or Thursday afternoon at 12:00. He was always there. He was never working. This was, again, like, work from home is really big now, and for your audience, like you wouldn't even think twice about it. But in 2003, 2004, nobody worked from home. Everybody went to an office except for this man. But it turns out, like, again, we somehow found out that he was suing his employer because he had a back problem and he was on some sort of medical leave. I don't really remember exactly how it all went down, but yeah. So that was there was another like lawsuit or some sort of like complaint, and he was just getting a paycheck for not doing anything. Again, putting in expensive paint on his garage door and spending garage floor and spending tens of $1,000s on solar panel on a very, very expensive house at the time. So yeah, the man didn't work. So the whole thing was just weird. So the phone calls that we would get, so he claimed to be like a paralegal, but he was also a paramedic or something. I don't remember. He was both somehow. Again,
and a photographer too.
And an award-winning photographer. It was strange. But he would call us up and say something along the lines of like, again, my buddy's name is Matt. He would say he called Matt more often than he called me, thankfully, poor Matt. But he called Matt and say, "Hey Matthew," always "Hey Matthew. Hey Matthew, I don't want to have to put on my lawyer hat on, but the solar panels aren't performing up to the specifications that you told me." And like, again, this was like once a week. And it would be like there was a leaf on the panel or something like that, or a couple leaves on the panel, but a normal person would go up and sweep them off, but he didn't do that. We would go out. And again, once a week, "Hey Matthew," or "Hey Gregory, I don't want to put on my legal hat or my attorney hat or something." And with the implication of, "I'm going to sue you if you don't come out here right away." And then that went on for a long time. Again,
so in the beginning, you probably went like every time.
In the beginning, we did go every time. Correct. Yeah. And then after like 2-3 years, we just started to ignore them. And we were just like, it got to the point where we were both like, "Dude, just sue us. I don't care at this point. Go for it. Take us to court."
Yeah.
We eventually got to it did. And then after about 2009, 2010, like we would hear from him once every couple years, once every 2-3 years. And there was a couple times where he would call us up drunk, like slurring. Yeah. Voice
my God.
slurring, like, "Hey Greg, hey Matthew," like just, "I don't want to put," and then he would go into this ramble of like stuff. And like there was like just this incoherent thought train. And we were just like, "Dude, he's drunk, like calling us right now." So that was another thing that was happening. Again, that was later on, and then it would be once every year or two. And then finally, sometime like 2015, 2016, we hadn't heard from him in a while, and the two of us were at a happy hour one time, and we're just Googling. We're like, "Oh, what the hell ever happened to him?" And it turns out he got arrested because he was pulling people over and impersonating a police officer. So yeah, so what happened was in the article, the police officers barged into his house and took him and
walked all over the expensive
and roughed him up a little bit and took him out of the house. And then apparently he was suing the police department for injuries or something like that. But yeah, so that was that. And then finally in 2020, the story ends because he calls up Matt. My buddy Matt is still in the solar business. And he calls up Matt and says, "Hey, I want to remove the solar panels." And my friend Matt's like, "Perfect, fine, good. But here's the stipulation that he laid out." He said, "But I want you to damage them when you're removing them." And my buddy Matt is like, "No, I am not doing that."
Why did he want them to damage them?
Well, so we think he wanted to commit some sort of fraud. He tried to commit fraud before with them because we had a hurricane in 2012, like Superstorm Sandy. It was 2011, maybe. I don't know if you remember Hurricane Sandy, but it was a big deal on the East Coast because we don't get hurricanes where I live. And he tried to claim he got one of his friends who was an insurance adjuster, insurance appraiser or something, to come out and try to get him to say that the solar panels were damaged by the wind. And we knew the insurance appraiser, and the guy was like, I'm not doing that. That's illegal. Like, they're fine. They're working perfectly. They're fine. There's no damage whatsoever. And so when he was getting them taken down, he wanted them damaged. And my buddy Matt said, I am not doing that. I am going to take a picture of every single one as they are placed on the ground. And you can do whatever you want after that. But I will have a picture of every single one of these placed on the ground. And that was the end of the story. We never heard from him since.
As a technical question, if you guys are the ones that installed it and were responsible, if he's taking down and wanting to claim damage, wouldn't he want to claim damage against you guys? So it kind of makes no sense.
I think he was going to claim damage just with an insurance company.
With insurance company.
Yeah. I don't think he wanted to do anything with us. I think he wanted to just get an insurance, get somebody with insurance to come out and just say, oh yeah, these were damaged. That kind of thing. Yeah. I don't think it was against us. I don't think it had anything to do with us. I think it was just him wanting to get his money back in some way, which is stupid because at the payback, I mean, he had them on for 17, 18 years. The solar panels already paid for themselves. So, yeah.
So many lessons from this.
Yeah.
Share some things you've learned from this crazy.
Yeah, so a couple of things that I shared. So the very first lesson is the character of the client or the customer is crucially important. That's one thing. As you said, if they're talking about suing their other vendors or their other service providers or other people, if that's like their thing that they're kind of talking about and bragging about, like just walk away because they're going to do that to you or they're going to threaten you. It's just a matter of time.
By the way, you added a nuance I want to call attention to, where it's not just did he mention in a conversation he sued another vendor, but he was bragging about it.
He was bragging about it, correct. It wasn't like it wasn't even like if you, like there's legitimate reasons why people are suing other folks, right? Like, you know, my parents when I was a kid, like work didn't get finished and they had to put a lien on the company because like the work just didn't get finished after like 6 months. But they never told anybody about it. Like they didn't go to the guy who was to the next contractor who was doing the work. They weren't like, oh yeah, so-and-so, we put a lien on so-and-so stuff. Yeah. Like that never happened. Like they just never, you know, when the guy was like, when the guy said, oh, how come it's not finished? They just said, oh, you know, the company just, they didn't finish it. And, you know, we're just taking care of that now. That was it. Like, that's like, there's reasons to sue people. I get it. There's reasons. Right. But in the very first thing to be like, I got this floor for free. You know what I mean? Like we sued the hell out of this company and they gave it to us and we got it for free. You know what I mean? There's a difference there. It's a different kind of like, it's a different thing. Like we didn't care about the floor. Like we weren't working on the floor. There was no reason to tell us that you were suing somebody.
It just told you about his character.
Yeah. It just told you exactly what you wanted to know about him. So that's the one thing that we learned. So the quality of the client.
By the way, there's another lesson related to the quality of the client, which is people don't change. Like
correct.
20 years later, he's still pulling these same sort of stunts.
100%. He's still trying to scam people. Totally. Absolutely. He's still scamming. So that was the other thing that we were stupid and we learned after this is that like we didn't in our contract, we didn't have a finality of work. You know what I mean? We just assumed like, yeah, once we're done, we're done. And again, took us to the third person to where we're like, here's where we end right here. You know what I mean? Like once the last bolt is tightened, we're done. Like we are no longer responsible for this. If you want to hire us to service it, that's cool. That's fine. We'll do that for you. But once this bolt is tightened and you agree and it passes inspection and you're happy with how it's running for a week or whatever it is, and it meets that expectation for the first week, what we told you was going to do, we're done.
I like this phrase, finality of work, and it's a subtle provision that very few people, when they're starting out, put that into a contract. Yeah, you learn through painful stories.
We didn't know either, and then after this nightmare, we started doing that. So I guess those are the two biggest lessons that we took from this.
Let's see if I can brainstorm some other lessons.
Sure.
I love the detail that he drunk dialed you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is well, that's in the middle of the story, so it's
that's towards like the end. That's like 10 years, 10, 15, 10, 12 years after the solar panels were installed. Yeah.
Insane.
This is like the drunk dials were like, so in fact, I'll never forget it. Go meet his daughter, who is now 11. So the baby was just born, just met her, like literally coming back from the hospital. My wife and I are going to meet her. So she's 11 years old, 12 years old. I'm so sorry. So this is 2013. And he's like, Greg, you got to hear this. As I'm holding the baby, he's like, Greg, you got to hear this. And it was this man slurring through a drunk dial. So yeah. So this is like 2013, 2012, somewhere in that range. I forget how old the girl is, but she's not a teenager yet. Just for time frame.
Okay. Yeah. So what's interesting about drunk dialing, even though it's already towards the end of the story and you knew for a long time he was crazy, it makes an interesting point about crossing professional boundaries as well.
For sure.
Because his 10 years of complaining, that is unfair in one way, there was clear implicit finality of work, and in future contracts you now make that explicit. But separate from that, when like professional work crosses bounds into social things like drunk dialing, it becomes crazy risky.
So like, as a double standard, if this happened to my wife or if this happened to my sister, I would have been way more
pissed off.
Correct. It happened to me. The man was older. He was out of shape. He was like whatever.
If it were a young hot client, a young hot female client of yours, drunk dialing you, then maybe you wouldn't have complained so much.
Well, I mean, my wife would have complained.
Your wife would have complained. That's right.
But like no. Like if it was my wife, my sister, so a woman like that, if it was one of our like account managers or something like that we had hired some women account managers. If it was one of my account managers, I would have been way more upset, way more pissed off, and we probably would have taken some sort of like action there in terms of like, dude, we're going to get a restraining order or something like that. But like, again, it was me, it was Matt. So it wasn't anything where we feel threatened personally in that regard. So yeah, there was a double standard, but you're right. It did cross a line and it was very creepy. It was wacky.
I'm laughing just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Another more subtle lesson is I'm intrigued that he would always use the same phrase. I need to put my lawyer hat on.
Yeah.
To me, when someone has a phrase that they always use, that means when they're using that phrase, they're on autopilot. When you're not in autopilot mode, you like think about new original things to say. But when you repeat the same speech, that means you've done it many times before, which is more evidence that he's been going around to lots of
100%. 100%. I don't remember if we thought about this, but maybe I thought about it later. But maybe he bragged about suing the floor company or the paint company or whatever, because he knew he was going to just like, that's his MO, right? Like, hey, if I just start and then like, hey, I'm going to put my attorney hat on, or I'm going to put my lawyer hat on, or whatever it is. I forget the exact phrase. I wish I knew. It was a lawyer hat, lawyer or legal, never attorney. I'm sorry. I'm going to put my lawyer hat on or my legal hat on. And he wasn't even a lawyer. That was the worst. That was the funniest part about it. But yeah. So like, it was always like, hey, if I tell them that that I sued them, somebody else, and then I could always use this phrase. I'm going to put my legal hat on, and that implying that we're going to sue. We're going to sue them. So, yeah.
So I've known or had to interact in various ways with multiple bad people who had a particular MO, which was the following, which was they would always tell the person that they're going to do a bad thing, like long before they actually did, because in their mind, it gives them this plausible deniability. It's
correct.
Like, no, the other person knew it's going to do it. They effectively agreed to do it.
Yep.
I've seen this pattern particularly in terms of watching friends date, where I've had female friends who a guy on the first date would say things like, "Hey, I'm just gonna make you fall in love with me, and then at the moment you fall in love with me, I'm going to disappear," and then like the guy does.
Yeah.
I feel like this is very much this similar psychological pattern, because you feel less evil if you say, "Hey, I told you I was going to take advantage of you and date you. You could have left before and at any time. You didn't, which means you wanted to play the game. We got your buy-in, so therefore it's fair for me to do that."
Yeah. I don't know if that was going on in his mind. I truly can't. I like this man, like obviously is a sociopath, right? Like there's something wrong with him. And so I don't even pretend to think about that I know what was going on in his mind. I always wondered if he was like trying to put that into our brains. I would imagine that he was, for sure, but I don't know.
There's a famous phrase from an esoteric / Satanist, Aleister Crowley. He wrote a bunch about it, and he has a line along these lines. It's like, the way for the call notes, I should look at the exact wording, but it's something like, the way evil works is that it has to show off what it's doing and get buy-in before it does. Something like this. So this is like the less deep version of that.
For sure. Yeah.
And
he was less evil and more crazy, I think. I don't know if he was evil. Like, he was crazy though. He was nuts.
I would point out, I think if you are evil, it's a very smart strategy to pretend to be crazy.
True.
Because if you think, it's like with politicians. If you think this politician all politicians rob and steal, so like all politicians are terrible and unethical. But if you think this politician over there is a genius, then you'll be like, oh my God, he's an evil genius trying to steal money and oppress us. But if there's that politician over there, if you think he's just like, yeah, he's a friggin' idiot. He doesn't know left from right. He can barely read. If you think he's so stupid, then guess what? You're not going to think he's like the evil mastermind oppressing the world. You're going to think he's just some idiot Joe Schmo, and thus you won't turn your investigative energies over to him.
Correct. Yep. That's funny. It's interesting.
My last lesson, this is a quick one, and then we can wrap up.
Yeah.
Is I love the final footnote that like 15 years later is like, hey, can you do this? And then he asked Matt, and then Matt said, I'm going to take pictures of this just to be sure. And I think there's a powerful lesson there, which is once you know someone is crazy, evil, challenging, then it makes sense to go all out with your documentation.
Totally.
In order to CYA.
Total 100%. You kind of like learn that lesson of like, yeah, Matt's thought, if I have to get wrapped up into this in any way, shape, or form, like I want to make 100% certain that my tracks are covered. Like none of this comes back on me. Like that there's nothing that like I did. Exactly. And you know what I mean? Like there's no way for anybody to be like, hey, this, they were broken on the way down or things like that. Like, yeah, the man had a big backyard. So, Matt placed them on pallets in the backyard because that's where he said he wanted them. So he placed them on pallets in the backyard, then covered them with a tarp to make sure that, there was minimal weather damage or things like that. We talk about it from time to time, but neither of us have any idea whatever happened to him, to the panels, to any of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Greg, this has been a great story. And I think you might have the record for the longest lasting client horror story.
Well, I don't want to say thank you because it's a terrible record and I hope nobody breaks it. So yeah, please, if you learn anything from this, no crazy clients, trust your judgment, and then finality of work. This is when your work ends, because you don't want to be dealing with a client 10, 15, 20 years later because it's terrible.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy people are out there.
Yes, 100%.
With these wise words, thank you, Greg. It's
Thank
been
you.
awesome, fun, and hysterical. And everyone who's made it to the end, we hope that you've enjoyed listening to and watching this as much as we had. Until next time.